What up? What up? We got a legend in the building today. Looking like new money. Got my man Christopher Play Martin in the building. Welcome to VladTV. What up, Play?
I'm good. How are you, man?
I'm excellent, man. Good to see you, brother. You looking good.
Hey, man. God's grace and mercy and a little just for men.
I know all about that, brother. All right, so let's get started because you got a amazing story. You are part of hip hop history. You were one part of one of the early mainstream crossover groups in hip hop. So I can't wait to dive deep into your story. You're from New York. What part?
Queens, New York, East Elmhurst to be specific, but I claim Corona and East Elmhurst, Queens, New York. Yeah.
Gotcha. Queens has spit out a lot of rap stars. It's something about Queens water or something. It's so
we
many.
Didn't know it. You know what I'm saying? We didn't know it. I mean, everybody was just friends doing what we did to get together wherever we got together at. In that particular place, for me, was a place called 127 Park. We called it the 7. And but right next door is Corona. So you had G-Rap and Polo. You had Kwame. We had Herbie Lovebug, Kid and I. And then a lot of people would just come. And Eric B, not far from me as well. Later entering Rakim. Just a whole bunch, man. I mean, a lot of cats that became well known eventually would frequent our area. I think the girls had a lot to do with it, but also the park jams. We were the 7, it was called the 7, or Bootyland, was very infamously known for our park jams. So that was the place to be, by any means necessary.
When you were coming up, hip hop, it wasn't the same landscape as we know it today. You were there in the early days of hip hop. What did it look like back in those days? At the time, was it even called hip hop?
Well, I'm glad you said that because that's something that I teach. I've been to several universities and been an artist in residence at several. And whenever I talk about it, I said, that era, I would call what would eventually would be called hip hop. Because basically it was a form of escapism. As you probably know or can remember, a lot was going on in New York fiscally. We were being abandoned by the government, DC, and a lot of money wasn't given to us. So our after-school programs were eliminated, music and art programs was eliminated. Then you had the height of crime, the gangs, all of that. So, and then, even from a more social situation, a lot of the government or the powers that be was instrumental in breaking up homes where they weren't going to publicly assist families that would have 2 incomes coming in the household. So someone came up with the bright idea, let's get the man out of the house. Or the man might have came up with the idea, let me get out of the house so we get this government money. And that might have been probably was the beginning of the end. So a lot of stuff was going on. And it just got to the point with the heat, especially in the summertime and stuff, where there's that phrase, that cliche, that music calms the savage beast. So when cats was coming out bringing their systems in the park or the block parties and stuff, it was more about just not having to think about what was going on at home or what was waiting for us at home, And so that had a lot to do with it, a lot. And then it was disco. That was the music. And then, we could get into it, how the evolution of it began, but it was basically escapism,
Got you. You talked about the landscape of New York City and how it was crime ridden. The government really did abandon New York. It's not the New York that we know today. Did you ever get caught up in the streets yourself?
Very much so. I mean, at that time, we didn't have rappers that we could look up to or aspire to. My heroes were the ghetto stars. I wanted to be like Fat Cat. I wanted to be like Alpo, Pappy Mason, Bimbo, any of those cats that I saw at that time from afar. That was my look of success, in a weird warp type of way. Then not to mention my father, who was out there in them streets and very successful, at least to the appearance of the neighborhood and others, driving the best car you could drive, dressing the way he drove. I mean, when I went to the movies to go see the black exploitation films, that look was right there in my home. You know what I'm saying? So for me, when I did go to school and when I went to school, and we had these things called the assemblies where you had to wear white shirts with dark pants. It'd be like once a month. You wouldn't go to a regular class. That day, I think it was like on a Wednesday, everybody, all the classes would come to the auditorium for an assembly. And with the assembly, they'd have a special guest. It would either be a bank president or a firefighter, these people that you could aspire to be. But when they would describe their life at home, it wasn't anything I could relate to. They didn't talk about, when you flicked on the lights in the middle of the night in the kitchen, how thousands of roaches would run for cover. They didn't talk about if you didn't have any heat in your home, how your father, when my father was home and not in prison, would talk about, hey, make sure that you put the oven door down and put this oscillating fan on the door so the heat could spread out throughout the house in the winter. They didn't tell any little stories, so I couldn't relate to what these guests would talk about in the assemblies. But when I saw the black exploitation films with the Superfly and Across 110th Street, and then walking right out of my front door and seeing where the girls was going to be at, the fly cars and the jewelry, I'm seeing cats that was more what I could identify with. And that was my influence and my inspiration. I wanted to be them by any means necessary.
Were you ever involved in any violent incidents? What type of crimes were you getting involved in at the young age?
Sticking people up.
Oh, stick up kid.
Yeah, that was the thing to be. Either a person at you, stick up, whatever the case may be. I mean, I don't glorify it. I was very stupid. As a matter of fact, I was so stupid to the point where the cats that in my mind and others, my boys and stuff, we praised those who were just coming out of prison. I wanted to go to prison to get that name. You know what I'm saying? All of that. I remember stupid stuff I did, hopefully that the cops would catch me so that people could hear, I didn't have the name Play at the time,